Good evening, Oakland. I'm your mayor, Libby Schaff, and we are here tonight for our weekly Thursday night town halls, keeping you informed on the latest developments during this COVID-19 pandemic. I want to start tonight by sending our prayers for the 2 Oakland police officers who recently tested positive for COVID-19. It is a reminder to all of us about the incredible sacrifices that our first responders and all of our frontline workers, our essential workers, the people who are keeping our grocery store shelves stocked, our healthcare workers, the folks that drive the bus, and of course, the City of Oakland's public works employees, our firefighters, our police officers that are going to great risks every day to continue to keep us safe and deliver those essential services. I also want to recognize that while there is suffering and loss because of this pandemic, Oakland is certainly showing up in some incredibly beautiful ways. And in particular this week, I want to recognize the 430 volunteers who are participating in the Great Oakland Check-In. They have already called more than 5,300 Oaklanders, starting with parts of the city where we know we have many seniors living alone and in need of food support, and also just a caring voice to see how they're doing. The Great Oakland Check-In is one of many examples how Oaklanders are going above and beyond in caring for their neighbors, particularly our most vulnerable during this very difficult time. So thank you for being with us tonight. Tonight, we're going to focus on Phase 2 Oakland. What will that look like? So first, my weekly update. All right, I know I'm a data geek, so I always love starting with some slides that show data. This is the good news. This is what the hospitalization rates in ICU and non-ICU, that's intensive care units, looks like in the Bay Area. So we can see that what we have been doing has helped. We are seeing fewer people hospitalized for COVID-19. And I always like to look at this measure in some ways more than the number of new infections or cases, because a lot of that is due to our improved testing. And I know we're going to have lots of questions for Dr. Moss later tonight about the state of testing. But from our perspective, that is improving greatly. Next slide. And again, Bay Area, we have so much to be proud of. Look at the difference in the death rate, as well as the percentage of cases that we are seeing in the Bay Area compared to other major metropolitan areas. The Bay Area is second best as far as lowest death rate compared to all the major metro areas with the exception of Houston, Texas. So let us keep it up. Thank you to our incredible, brave, intelligent health officers who were the first in the country to impose a shelter in place. It has paid off. It has saved lives. Next slide. So let's talk about some news from this week. Big news is we opened our 3rd free testing site. Now this is a drive-through site. In fact, I'm going to go get my own test on Saturday, so I'll tell you what it's like. At Allen Temple Baptist Church, 85th and International, an amazing community leader. Allen Temple has graciously opened up its large parking lot to do drive-through testing. Again, this is free. You do not need to have insurance. In fact, next slide. Just a reminder, you don't need to have insurance. This is free. You don't have to have any sort of citizenship or migration status. We are a sanctuary city. It is safe. It is confidential. We want you to get tested. If you have anything that you think could be a symptom, don't take a chance. Get tested. If you have no symptoms at all, but you are working or volunteering outside the home, you can get tested. If you have no symptoms at all, but you're over the 5, you have a chronic medical condition, or you smoke, or you're in a high risk, coming out of a high risk environment, like being unsheltered or coming out of incarceration, you don't even need to have symptoms to get to a free test. If you're in Oakland, call 311. You can go to our website, oaklandca.gov/testing. If you're outside of Oakland, but you live or work in Alameda County, you too can get tested for free in Oakland. You can call 510-615-5566. All right, next slide. More news of the week, the big news, and it's what we're going to dive into tonight. Oakland and Alameda County have entered phase 2. That means some activities, some business activities and consumer retail activities are going to be coming back to us. But let me emphasize what phase 2 does not mean. It means we cannot let up on staying safe and following what I call the 3 C's. Cover your face with a mask, clean your hands well and often, and finally, keep distant. Maintain 6 feet distance from others who are not part of your household. If we do not follow these 3 simple precautions, we are going to have to roll back these new liberties that we are seeing in phase 2. Remember, we don't have a cure, we don't have a vaccine. These 3 cautions are the activities, the sacrifice we still need to make if we are going to be allowed to reopen without really risking a huge setback in public health. Next slide. Good news this week. We made some huge progress in closing the digital divide. Hopefully you heard we met our goal of raising $12.5 million to ensure that the 25,000 Oakland Public School students without sufficient technology or connectivity or technical support at home can now get connected. And special shout out to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter and Square, who made a personal donation of $10 million, as well as Mark Pincus, founder of Zynga, the gaming company, who made a personal donation of $700,000. Again, many generous donations that made this $12.5 million goal possible. And if you have any questions about how you can get involved, if you have devices to donate, you want to make a small contribution, or you maybe have some tech skills and would like to support families in getting their digital connectivity going, please, you can learn more at oaklandedfund.org/digital divide. Big news this week. Next slide. These are some of the things that Savlon will probably be talking about more as we get ready to move into phase 2. What is the city of Oakland doing to help our small businesses? One, if you need a white curb in front of your business for curbside pickup or delivery, we will come do it for you. Just contact Oak 311, dial 311, or email oak311@oaklandca.gov. We also are allowing any business to use what we call the frontage zone. That's the 3 feet in front of the 3 feet of public space right in front of your business. During this time, you don't need a permit or to pay a fee to use that frontage zone. If you need to set up a table or do something so that you can facilitate drive-by or curbside retail. So this is in honor of phase 2. And finally, we are working in partnership with our business districts to streamline sidewalk and roadway permitting. I know we'll talk more about that. It's a pivot from our slow streets success, as well as kind of a parklet program on steroids. We're looking at ways that we can repurpose roadways, sidewalks, and that precious public right-of-way to facilitate safe and healthy reopening of retail in a way that we can enjoy but still follow those 3 C's: the clean, the cover, and especially the keep distance. Next slide. Another great piece of news this week, we announced the East Bay Oakland Relief Fund for individuals in the arts. If you are a working artist, or you work for an arts nonprofit, or you're an arts teacher, you could qualify for an emergency grant. Applications will be accepted through June 5th. You can find out more by going to cciarts.org. And while half of the, I think it's about $625,000 in grants will be going to Oakland artists, the other half will be going to artists that live or work anywhere in Alameda or Contra Costa counties. Special shout out to the Rainin Foundation that has just been an amazing supporter of the arts in Oakland and outside of Oakland that made this fund possible. Next slide. Also, big news this week, the Oakland City Council extended the eviction moratorium. So if you are a tenant, you cannot be evicted with the exception of the Ellis Act, or you are causing an immediate threat to health or safety. You cannot be evicted until either August 31st or the end of the city declared health emergency, whichever occurs first. And if you have a small business, you cannot be evicted. Your small business cannot be evicted until the end of the governor's executive order. Great protections for both small businesses and tenants. Next slide. We also are rolling out some more slow streets this weekend. It's to complement our Give the Lake a Break. You may have heard that we are not allowing parking on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this Memorial Day Monday on the lakeside around the lake. We are not allowing any sort of vending in any of our parks. We have closed parking lots at all of our parks, but we have opened up a number of streets to our slow street movement around the lake to give people more space to spread out, to roller skate, scooter, jog, walk in a socially distanced and safe manner. And also tomorrow we'll be having a press conference to unveil our very first kind of evolution of our Slow Streets program, something called Essential Places. This is something that has come out of requests, particularly from the East Oakland community, wanting safe passage to critical spaces where people receive food, healthcare. Essential Places is about safe passages to essential spots. And so find out more about that tomorrow. The press conference will be tomorrow morning. This is just part of how when you tell us what you need and what you want, we are trying to deliver it. Continue to give us your feedback. We are starting now to analyze the requests that we've gotten for new slow streets that were not part of the 74 miles of eligible roads that we originally unveiled. We are listening to you. We are responding to requests for new slow streets that weren't originally designated. So stay tuned next week. You might have some surprises about where our next set of slow streets can go so that people can spread out on our precious roadways and use them for recreational purposes. Next slide. Also, we started delivering our great plates. This is an amazing resource. It's one of the great things about the Great Oakland Check-In. We're finding hundreds of seniors that qualify. If you want to find out whether you or a senior that you know who lives alone or someone who is suffering from a chronic medical condition that makes them especially at risk of COVID-19, you can find out more about Great Plates Delivered, literally delivering meals to your home by great volunteers, and a fabulous partnership with our World Central Kitchen that is keeping 100 local restaurants in Oakland working and going. You can find out more about Great Plates as well as other food resources. We have grab and go sites all over the city. Many of our libraries are now being used as food distribution centers. Please go to oaklandca.gov/food or you can call 510-238-FOOD. Again, 238-FOOD to find out where you can either get a meal delivery service or access to grab-and-go food. That is our resource of the week. I think that is the end. Oh, finally, big news for the city of Oakland. Congratulations to Ed Riskin, who was appointed yesterday as the city administrator of the city of Oakland. Ed is our top executive running the city and giving amazing leadership and support to the 5,000 City of Oakland workers that serve you every day. Congratulations, Ed. All right, that concludes my weekly update. While you hear from our experts, please join the conversation. Send us your questions. You can even send us your comments, whatever you want. This is supposed to be interactive. So please click the link, scan the QR code, or if you're listening from the phone, get a pen and write down that you can text 344-323-337 to the number 72855. Again, for those of you listening in by phone, text 344-323-337 to the number 72855. Please text us your questions for our experts tonight or your comments. And we are having two fabulous experts tonight. We are going to hear from Dr. Nick Moss from Alameda County's Health Department to answer all your health-related questions. What does phase 2 mean? What does it not mean? How did we get there? How can we stay there? And then let's hear from someone who helps all of our business districts across the city serve you, your retail needs, your entertainment needs. Savlon Hauser is the representative for all our BIDs, the Business Improvement Districts of Oakland, and she's going to show you a pretty exciting vision about what it's going to look like as we safely come back over to Dr. Moss.
Okay, can everyone hear me? All right. So thank you, Mayor Schaaf, for having me back on this forum. And I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the things that the mayor shared from the perspective of the Alameda County Public Health Department. So as of today, we have 2,609 COVID-19 cases in Alameda County and 90 deaths. And that includes 72 cases and 1 death in Berkeley. And so, clearly we're continuing to feel the impact throughout the county in Oakland and beyond. And then if we could bring up my first slide, I will talk a little bit about some changes with our approach this week. So as of Monday, we have 2 new health officer orders, and I want to highlight the modified shelter-in-place order that became effective this week. This authorizes more activities throughout the county. We've started with things that are fairly low risk, as long as proper precautions are taken. And so these include curbside and storefront retail businesses and delivery businesses, as well as manufacturing and warehousing. We are following the state guidance as we enter this sort of early phase 2 reopening. At this time in Alameda County, general offices and dine-in restaurants are not yet permitted. We've got a lot of questions about when we're going to move to start opening more businesses, when we'll move to later stage 2. And the answer is not yet. I'll spend a little bit more time on that in a minute, because I know it's very important to a lot of people. And I do want to emphasize that even with this more restricted reopening or more limited reopening, more people will be out and about. You're probably seeing it already. Everyone needs to wear face coverings, keep that 6 feet of distance from each other, and continue to practice good hand hygiene. And as we start to reopen, the county is supporting businesses with their reopening plans. I know that the city is also, as we're going to hear more about today, really invested in business here in Oakland. But we've established a COVID recovery team at the county to provide technical assistance to businesses who want to reopen safely. There are some things that we are expecting of businesses. So again, social distancing, face covering, worked into both staff and clients making use of the business, as much remote work as possible, but also employee training on how to stay safe from COVID and also protect customers, making sure that the right cleaning and safety protocols are in place. So there is information about our COVID recovery efforts on our website, and there's also an email address, covidrecovery@acgov.org, and I can make sure that the mayor's staff have that information to send out. There's another order that was that the health officer Erica Pond made this week regarding vehicle-based gatherings. I know it's been very difficult for a lot of folks to remain sheltered in place, and it's, particularly around things that we normally do together. Graduation is a big one. And so along with other Bay Area counties, we've tried to facilitate this a little bit, tried to make it a little bit easier for people to do some things. Vehicle-based gatherings is a poor substitute, I know, for a real graduation ceremony, but they're now permitted up to 300 cars and a maximum of 3 hours. Again, we have some guidance on how to do this properly. There are a bunch of regulations that come along with the order, having to do with the way the vehicle gatherings work. Just briefly, they should be invitation only. Gatherings with more than 10 cars need to really have security in order to enforce the physical distancing and the other requirements of the orders. Occupants of the vehicles need to be from the same household and need to remain in the car. You can't sell food or drinks at these events. And so, definitely some restrictions, but we hope that people and organizations can take advantage of this to try to do some activities they weren't able to do earlier in our shelter in place restriction. Non-medical services are also being allowed to resume in the county, and we have issued some guidance to healthcare providers for this. People should be able to schedule certain medical care that they may have postponed. Obviously, healthcare providers need to take measures to continue to protect their patients and their staff, but it is important that people start to get back to their routine medical care. And we really want to make sure that we're not losing ground on other kinds of disease prevention. And so we really want to remind parents with children that it's important to keep up with routine immunizations, and this is absolutely encouraged by the public health department. We know a lot of medical providers feel the same way. We need to keep with our routine immunizations so that we can continue to prevent some of these other common infections that we have good vaccines for while we deal with COVID. And then if we could move on to my second slide, I want to talk a little bit about our progress and the indicators that we're following as we try to relax the shelter in place measures further. So, I know that there's a strong desire from really everyone to sort of get back to some version of life as normal. And there are a lot of good arguments for that, but we also need to continue to protect the, everyone is susceptible to COVID. Anyone can have severe infection, or we're seeing people pass away from COVID no matter what their background is. But we also need to be mindful that it's having a particularly devastating impact on certain communities of color, and people who don't have the ability to social distance in the same way. They live in crowded households. They need to keep working because they're essential workers. And so we need to continue to have a measured approach to protect our community's health as we reopen. So this set of indicators here are what we're following, and they are nothing's hard and fast. Every decision to reopen further has to be weighed carefully on its own merits, but we are, along with other jurisdictions and health departments across the Bay Area, we want to make sure that our cases and hospitalizations are flat or decreasing. We have done pretty well here in Alameda County, particularly early on. It does seem like we're seeing a slight increase in cases, but I'm hopeful that a lot of that is because we're expanding access to testing. So we're actually identifying more cases that we might have been missing before. We also look closely at our hospitalizations, because that's less affected by how much testing is out there, and is the real measure of how much severe disease that we have. And so that's been remained fairly flat in Alameda County, although it does bounce around, and we watch it very carefully if, in particular, as we start to relax some of these restrictions on daily life. We want to make sure our hospitals are prepared if the numbers go up, and we've done very well in that regard. In terms of testing, our goal is to do 3,100 tests per day across the county. And that goal is in order to identify cases, help us get people to stay home who have COVID or who may have been exposed to it so they can't pass it on. We can only do that if they've had a test and they know that they have COVID. City of Oakland's been a real leader, and we've been able to partner with them on some sites, including the ones that the mayor mentioned earlier in the call. As of this week, we're about a third of the way to our goal for the county. We're doing about 1,000 tests per day. That was, I think, double where we were 2 weeks before. So we are making progress, but still a ways to go. I think I spoke on a past town hall about contact tracing. The county is heavily invested in making sure that we can investigate every case of COVID that's diagnosed within our borders, and make sure that person stays home, make sure that anybody who had close contact to that person who had a real exposure to COVID also stays home. We call that quarantine. And we, as part of our efforts to expand our contact tracing, we've gone from a team of 7 people to 75 people with a plan to go to 300 people. And that plan is going to involve partnerships with organizations throughout the county to do really effectively to reach communities that are impacted by COVID. It's also going to involve making sure that people have the right resources, and we're looking forward to being able to share more of that in the very near future. And then just in terms of personal protective equipment, that's really making sure that healthcare providers throughout the county have what they need to be able to do their job safely so that they can provide the services that you and your neighbors need. I also wanted to just briefly mention that similar to City of Oakland, the county is heavily invested in addressing the health equity issues of COVID, and we are going to be sharing, and it may already be released, a health equity brief regarding COVID, and that should be available on our website. If it's not, it will be soon. And we continue to work with the City of Oakland's task force on this area, and really our own health equity task force is closely partnered with all of our response efforts at the county. Last thing I wanted to say is we're coming up to a long weekend, and I know people are going to be celebrating Memorial Day, the end of Ramadan, or just beautiful weather we're finally starting to have. Please remember, in-person gatherings remain prohibited with very few exceptions. And so please, keep that physical distance, stick with your household members, remember to wear your face covering, and just stay healthy and keep your neighbors healthy. And I have some questions, but I think we'll have a chance to answer those later in the call. So I think I'll speak up there.
Great, thank you, Dr. Moss. And yes, I know lots of people have questions. I think I sent you one from Nancy. It was a good question. She wants to know when she can see her grandchildren. Next, though, we're going to hear from Savlin Hauser, the head of our Coalition of Business Improvement Districts, and then she runs the Business Improvement District for our beloved Jack London Square. Savlin.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you for having me. Hi, Oakland. We can pull up the first slide if the slides are available. As the Mayor mentioned, I am the Executive Director of the Jack London Improvement District, also Chair of the 11-member Oakland Bid Alliance, which includes all of the commercial districts, business improvement districts in Oakland. In Jack London alone, we represent over 500 businesses. Collectively, all of the business improvement districts from Temescal to Fruitvale represent several thousand businesses. And we all collectively reinvest over $7 million of funds raised privately into public spaces, public programs, outreach to the homeless, public art, street festivals, hundreds of street festivals collectively over the course of the year. And we don't just represent businesses, which is important. We also, our stakeholders are also property owners, workers, visitors, because it's really going to take all of us to build our neighborhoods, make them vibrant again, and do it safely. So next slide. I just want to operations have changed because we are really in a very human way. Next slide, please. Our street ambassadors, whom many of you may recognize, we'll go back to that slide when we get there. They are out on the streets 7 days a week. They're some of the friendliest faces in Oakland, greeting people, giving them directions, cleaning up litter. These days, our ambassadors are wearing vests that remind people to practice social distancing and stay away. And that's really tough for particularly the ambassador who's modeling this vest, Mr. G, who's just the sweetest ambassador. And but it's something that we all have to retrain ourselves to do. Our neighborhood festivals look a little different too. On the left-hand side, you see a snippet of our National Night Out party, which brought together businesses and residents. And these days, our neighborhood parties look a little different. We've been hosting Friday night trivia nights, pub trivia nights, where we invite Oaklanders to go out and support a small business in Jack London, bring it home to their couch or kitchen and share it with us while playing pub trivia. It's a far cry from those parties on the left-hand side, but it's an adjustment. And the Koreatown Northgate Bid, who produces the amazing, wildly popular First Fridays event with all types of art, hosted a major community benefit and raised money. And because right now, obviously, it's impossible to have performances and live types of gatherings that we're used to. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it anything. This is tough. These adjustments are tough for people. And I, for one, I grew up busking on the street, playing my fiddle in Northern California for dollars, and so crowds are what I love. As a business improvement director, I love seeing crowds on the street and vibrant neighborhoods. So it's going to take a lot of sort of brain retraining for all of us who are.
that one, we were having, I think, some technical difficulties hearing you. If we have more problems, keep on going.
Okay.
My folks can text you about how you can phone in your talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can hear you now.
Do you remember the last sentence I said? I can go back a little bit. Anybody want to help me out about? Okay. Well, I'll start about our street ambassadors. Are used to greeting people up close, and we've got to tell people to stay away. We've got to remind people to practice social distancing, and again, that's going to be a brain retrain for all of us who love to see crowds, love to see full streets full of people and activity. So, next slide. So, some things in Jack London look the same. In Jack London, we have an amazing historic wholesale produce district with 26 individual operators that has been in continuous operation since 1917. So it's already seen one pandemic, and today it looks much the same that it did just a couple of months ago. However, some things are brick and mortar shops that welcome customers look drastically different. Here's Bicycle Coffee. It's a neighborhood watering hole, and we're having to see those types of businesses pivot to more wholesale clients, more grocery store, even getting people the beans directly, because it's not possible to have that same type of coffee shop experience. And people will be staying much closer to home. We're seeing that people are looking for groceries in their immediate area. They're staying so close to home, they're trying to stay within just a few blocks radius. So we've produced a grocery guide of where to find groceries, because going to a standard grocery store these days and for a while might be sort of a harrowing experience for folks. So as businesses pivot, we're constantly letting folks know what they're offering as it's evolving continuously. And I wanted to give a shout out to Visit Oakland, that's also going to be looking at what visitors are going to be wanting to do, and that is also staying closer to home within destinations that they can drive to, even exploring your own city as a tourist once again. So next slide. So I'm excited to share, though, a few examples of where our have adapted and pivoted and been so inventive and creative. And I feel so very fortunate to work with inventive and generous people I have ever met. And we're seeing a lot of creativity. In this pandemic, local businesses have been some of the most generous and nimble community responders, and extremely protective of their employees too. So very protective and concerned about when it's safe to even have working in their shops. Nido Backyard, for example, for Cinco de Mayo, sold caja de cinco boxes so that families could enjoy games and Mexican dinners and drinks from their homes. Minimal Wine Shop, which is an amazing local watering hole, which usually on Wednesdays is a hub for picking up your fish delivery and having a tasting and meeting with neighbors, hosted their wine tasting last week at 6 a.m. Republic of Georgia time, which was 7 p.m. here in Oakland, to have a wine tasting via Zoom. Federation Brewing and a lot of our brewers are pivoting to canning. They've got to can those barrels that were going to go to restaurants and get them directly to the customers. Wine and Design is a shop where you can paint and drink wine, and they are delivering art kits and hosting online painting classes. So there's a lot of really wonderful ways people are pivoting. Again, some of it is it's just sort of a born out of necessity. For example, Slancha, the Irish pub on 2nd and Broadway, was going to have an epic St. Patrick's Day on the 13th of March, and they were shut down. Of course, they had to be. So all of that food got boxed up into meals and was given to people experiencing hardship in the weeks after that, when that event would have happened. To the street, and